We thought the island was empty. No boats, no voices, no signs of anyone. But later that night, we found footprints coming out of the water. And that wasn't the worst part, because the second time we went back, we discovered someone had been taking photos of us, not just on the island, but from the mainland, before we ever crossed the lake. And by the time we realized we were being watched, it was already too late. Tonight I'm sharing 3 island horror stories. Stories about isolation, about territory, and about the moment you realize you were never alone there. We didn't think anyone else would be on that island. There were no other cars in the parking lot, no boat trailers, no coolers sitting by the dock, just wind, and the sound of metal chains tapping against the wood. The lake looked calm. Too calm. It didn't feel empty. It felt still, like it was waiting. There were 4 of us, 2 kayaks, 1 big cooler, 1 tent we all planned to share. The island wasn't far. Maybe 15 minutes out if you paddled steady. You could still see houses from the water. But once you started moving toward it, it felt farther, quieter, like you were leaving something behind. The paddle out was smooth. No boats passed us, no waves, no noise. Just the sound of water sliding under the kayaks. When we pulled up onto the beach, the sand looked untouched. No footprints, no drag marks, nothing. We dragged the kayaks higher than we probably needed to, just to be safe. That's when I saw the fire pit. It was near the trees, a small circle of rocks. I didn't think much of it at first. People camp. That's normal. But when I stepped closer, something felt off. The ash inside wasn't completely gray. Some of it was darker, pressed down. I crouched, held my hand over it. It was warm, not hot, but definitely warm. I kept my hand there longer than I should have, just to make sure. It was still warm. I didn't tell the others. I didn't want to change the mood. So I told myself the sun had heated the rocks. That made sense. It had to. We set up camp about 20 feet from the tree line, close enough for shade, far enough to see movement. Or at least that's what we thought. The afternoon felt normal. We swam, we joked, we ate. But I kept looking at the trees. It felt hard to see into them, like the island didn't want you to look too far. At one point, I heard something, a branch snapping, not deep in the woods, close. I turned fast. Nothing there, just trees. Later, right before sunset, I walked down to grab something from one of the kayaks. That's when I noticed they weren't where we left them. They were closer together, and slightly higher up on the sand. Not by a lot, just enough. I stood there staring at them, trying to remember exactly how we pulled them in. I was sure we left space between them. I asked if anyone had moved them. They said no. We laughed about it, blamed the water. But there was no tide, and the water hadn't reached that high. I checked the sand carefully. No new footprints, just ours. That's when it stopped feeling funny. Night came fast. 1 minute it was orange, the next it was dark, real dark. No city glow, no passing lights, just black. We built a fire in that same pit. The wood cracked loudly. Every pop felt too sharp. Then we heard it. A splash, far out in the water. Heavy, not a fish. Another splash, closer, slow, like someone stepping into the lake. 1 step, pause, another step. No one said anything. We just listened. Then something small hit the sand near us. Or it landed close enough that we all heard it. We jumped up, flashlights on. The beams cut through the trees. For a second, I thought I saw something. A shape. Tall. Still. Then it shifted. and it was gone. From the shoreline, we heard something dragging, slow, like something heavy being pulled. We ran. One of the kayaks was halfway in the water, floating, drifting out slowly. The lake was calm. There was no reason for it to be moving. We pulled it back. That's when we saw the footprints in the wet sand, fresh, coming from the water, leading into the trees. Bare feet, large, deep impressions. Not careful, not hiding, like whoever made them wanted us to see. We didn't sleep that night. Every little sound felt close. Branches shifting, water moving, wind brushing the tent. At some point, around 3 horas de madrugada, I heard breathing outside the tent. Slow. Close. Close enough that I stopped breathing just to listen. I could hear the inhale, then the exhale. Then, nothing. Morning came slowly. The island looked normal again, peaceful. The fire pit was cold, completely cold. The ash was pale, like it hadn't been used in weeks. The footprints were gone, smoothed flat. We packed up without talking much. No one joked anymore. No one brought up the splashes, or the rock, or the breathing. We just loaded everything back into the kayaks. As we paddled toward the mainland, I didn't look back at first. I didn't want to. But halfway across the lake, I turned around. The island didn't look smaller from a distance. It didn't look harmless. It just sat there, still, like it was watching us leave. When we reached the dock, there was an extra kayak tied there, old, scratched, still dripping water. No one standing near it, no one claiming it, just sitting there, facing the direction of the island. As we loaded our kayaks back onto the car, I kept looking out over the water. The island didn't move. It didn't change. It just stayed there. And I couldn't shake the feeling that we hadn't really left it behind. We should have left it at that. But we didn't. We saw the lighthouse the first time we paddled out. It stood above the trees, tall, faded, leaning just a little toward the water. From far away, it looked abandoned. Up close, it didn't. The second time we went back to the island, we told ourselves we were just being paranoid. The fire pit, the footprints, the kayak moving. There had to be an explanation. So we decided to check the lighthouse, in daylight, because daylight makes everything feel less dangerous. The closer we walked toward it, the quieter the island felt. Not silent, just muted. Even our footsteps in the sand sounded dull. The trees around the lighthouse were thicker than the rest of the island, more tangled, more shadowed. The door was slightly open, not broken, not forced, just unlatched. That bothered me more than if it had been kicked in. We stood there for a second. No one said it out loud, but we all felt it. Someone had been there, recently. We stepped inside. The air felt cooler, concrete walls, old metal hooks on one side. Dust covered most of the floor, except for a path. Boot prints, fresh, clear tread marks. They led toward the spiral staircase, only up, none coming down. One of my friends said quietly, "Maybe they're still up there." No one laughed. The staircase wrapped tight around the center pole. Narrow, metal. Every step echoed when we started climbing. Too loud. Halfway up, we heard something, a light scrape, like a shoe shifting against metal. Above us. We froze. No one moved. No one spoke. Silence again. But it didn't feel empty. It felt occupied. We kept going. Slow. Careful. When we reached the top platform, sunlight poured in through cracked glass. The room looked empty. But it didn't feel empty. There was a folding chair near the railing, facing the lake, like someone had been sitting there watching the water. waiting. Next to it was a small cooler. Clean. Not dusty. One of us opened it. Inside were 2 water bottles, cool to the touch, and a sandwich, still soft, not stale, not old. That's when my stomach tightened. Someone had been there that day. Then I noticed something near the wall. A small black radio, battery-powered. I picked it up. Wasn't covered in dust. I pressed the button. Static filled the room. Loud, echoing off the concrete. We all flinched. The static hissed for a second. Then, the lighthouse door slammed below us. Hard, violent. The sound shot up the stairwell. The radio crackled louder, then went dead. Silence. We looked at each other. Someone had just come in. We moved toward the stairs. Halfway down, we heard footsteps. Below us, slow, back and forth, pacing, not rushing, not running, just walking. We stopped. The pacing stopped too. Then, a shadow moved along the wall, and slowly, the tip of a boot appeared at the bottom of the staircase, still, facing up. Whoever it was stood directly beneath us, close enough to hear us breathing. But they didn't move. They didn't speak. They didn't climb. They just stood there, waiting. One of my friends whispered, "Go back up." We backed up slowly. Every metal step echoed too loud. Back to the top platform. Trapped. The only way out was down. Past whoever was standing there. We waited. It felt like forever. Then, the footsteps started again, moving away, toward the door. We heard it open, then close. Silence. We stayed still a little longer. Eventually, we went down. Slow. Careful. The bottom floor was empty, but the dust told a different story. There were now 2 sets of boot prints, one circling the room, one directly beneath the staircase, facing upward, exactly where that boot had appeared. Outside, we noticed smoke rising from deeper in the trees. Thin, controlled, not from our camp. When we got back to the beach, something felt off immediately. Our tent zippers were slightly open, not fully, just enough. Backpacks had shifted. The cooler lid wasn't sealed tight anymore. Nothing was missing, but everything had been touched, moved, inspected. Near the edge of the sand, scratched into the ground, were tally marks. 4 lines. We had only stayed 2 nights. We packed up fast. No one argued. No one tried to explain it away this time. As we paddled back toward the mainland, I kept looking over my shoulder. The lighthouse didn't look smaller the farther we got. Didn't look abandoned. It just stood there. Still, like it was watching us leave. When we reached the dock and lifted the kayaks out of the water, I glanced back one more time. The island hadn't changed. Didn't move. It didn't fade. It just stayed there. And I couldn't shake the feeling that we hadn't been exploring it. We had been counted. We shouldn't have gone back. After the fire pit, after the footprints, after the lighthouse. That should have been enough. But daylight makes everything feel smaller, less dangerous, more explainable. So we went back. Same 4 of us. Same dock. Same quiet stretch of water. The lake looked calm again. Still. Like nothing had ever happened. But even as we paddled closer, I couldn't shake the feeling that something already knew we were coming. Like we weren't arriving. Like we were returning. This time we camped in the open. No trees directly behind us. No blind spots. If someone approached, we would see them. That was the idea. We kept telling ourselves that. Out loud. Like saying it would make it true. Late that afternoon, I walked toward the tree line to grab some driftwood. That's when I saw it. A tarp. Folded carefully. Covered with sand and leaves. Not random. Hidden. Placed. I called the others over. We uncovered it slowly. Underneath was a large plastic storage bin. Clean, locked, not weathered, maintained. My stomach tightened before we even opened it. Inside were supplies, sealed food, bottled water, flashlights, extra batteries, 2 knives, blankets folded neatly, everything arranged too carefully, too deliberately. It wasn't abandoned, it was organized. Someone was living there. Then one of us found a smaller waterproof case underneath the blankets. We opened it. Photographs, printed, clear. The first one showed our tent from the first night, taken from inside the trees, zoomed in. The second showed us unloading the kayaks, from behind, close enough to see our faces clearly. The third made my chest tighten. Was a photo of us sleeping, inside the tent, taken from outside. You could see our silhouettes through the fabric. None of us had woken up that night, which meant whoever took it had been standing there, close, quiet, watching us breathe. We kept flipping through them. More angles, different times. Some taken from higher up, like from one of the trees. Then we found the one that changed everything. It was taken from the mainland dock, the morning of our first trip. Zoomed in on us, loading the kayaks into the water. They had been watching us before we ever crossed the lake, before we ever stepped onto the island, before we even knew someone was there. Some of the photos were from earlier that same day. The shadows matched, the light matched, which meant they were watching us right then, somewhere nearby, maybe even while we were holding those photos. We put everything back exactly how we found it. Every blanket folded, every item placed carefully. We covered the tarp again, like we had never touched it. That night, we didn't build a fire. We didn't talk much. We just sat in the dark, listening. Every sound felt intentional. Every shift in the trees felt directed at us. Sometime around 3 horas de madrugada, I woke up. I didn't know why at first. Then I heard it. Breathing. Right outside the tent. Slow, measured, close enough that it felt like it was inches from my face. Then a whisper. Soft. Right against the fabric. Why did you come back? My chest locked up. No one moved. Then another voice. Lower. Calmer. You don't belong here. The tent wall pressed inward slightly, a hand sliding across it. Slow, deliberate. Then, a camera shutter, right outside. The sound was quiet, but unmistakable. We bolted, unzipped the tent, and ran toward the shoreline. Barefoot, no bags, no flashlights. The kayaks were already drifting out into the water. Boot prints circled the tent. Multiple sets. One set stood exactly where my head had been, facing down, watching. Near the trees stood 2 figures, still. One holding a camera. They weren't chasing us. They weren't yelling. They were observing. The taller one spoke calmly. You weren't the first, the other added, and you won't be the last. We swam hard toward the kayaks. The water felt freezing, but adrenaline kept us moving. When we climbed into the kayaks and looked back, they were still standing there, not moving, not following, just watching. The next day, rangers searched the island. They found platforms hidden high in the trees, small observation spots, overlooking the beach, overlooking the lighthouse, overlooking the mainland dock. But the bin was gone. The photos were gone. The footprints were gone, like someone had erased themselves. We never went back. None of us did. But a week later, one of us got an envelope in the mail. No return address. Inside was a photo, taken from across the street, of his house. As we stood there looking at it, none of us said anything. The photo had been taken at night. You could see him standing near the window, looking out. And when we zoomed in on the reflection in the glass, there was someone standing behind him. Even now, when I think about that island, it doesn't feel far away. It doesn't feel like something we left behind. It just sits there, still, like it's waiting for us to come back. And sometimes I wonder if it's not waiting for us at all, if it's waiting for whoever comes next.